Thanks, Chris. Bienvenue tout le monde. Merci d'être ici. On est fiers d'accueillir Travis Green. Today is a proud day for our Ottawa Senators. We engaged in a real deep dive and detailed process to identify our next head coach with the Ottawa Senators. All impressive people that we had met with. And as we continued to dig in, I think what became very clear about midway through is Travis Green's fit with our group, his ability to lead our team became very clear. So as we continued on, I think things that we value from Travis is his leadership, his passion, his experience, his ability to develop players, get the most out of players, and also have a firm and fair approach, which I believe that'll help our team on the next step. I think when you engage in a process like this, with the available candidates that are out there, I'm extremely proud and feel lucky that Travis was available to us. And so want to welcome Travis Green to the Ottawa Senators, and congratulations. Thanks. Yep.
Just first of all, I want to thank a few people, obviously you all, for coming today. I want to start off by thanking Michael Andlauer, the owner of our team. As I went through this process, one of the things that always matters to, coaches in general is ownership. And when I spoke to Michael throughout this process, I really felt his passion, his commitment, his support to the staff, to the players, to the fans, but also the community, the Ottawa Gatineau community. And, that meant a lot. And from a coach to feel that is important to me. And I want to thank Michael personally for hiring me, and the same to Steve for showing faith in me. Again, when I went through this process, and the more Steve and I talked, I saw his leadership, his honesty, his vision of the team, his collaboration with a coach. And you want to feel that with your general manager. And I want to thank Steve and the rest of his management staff for selecting me to be their coach. And I'm really excited to be here. I've coached in the Canadian market before, and I can't wait to get going here in Ottawa.
Thanks, Travis. We'll begin with questions, Gord. Gord Wilson, TSN 1200. Just for you, Steve, organizationally and personally, is there a sense of relief that this task is?
I guess a little bit of relief, but also excitement. I think, like I said, when you enter into the process like this, and you're going through the candidates and their personality and their strengths and their, what they bring, not always do you land on what we feel is a perfect fit for our group. And so more excitement, but also this is a massive step for our organization, obviously. And the work just becomes now for me to be able to support Travis, build out the coaching staff, and continue to look forward.
Hey, guys, Ian Mendes with The Athletic. A question for each of you, if that's okay. Travis, I'll start with you. April 18th, you said, I want to be the head coach of the New Jersey Devils. So could you maybe walk us through the last 3 weeks and how we ended up here and not with you doing this in New Jersey?
Yeah. Well, at that point in time, obviously that was the year-end meetings for us in Jersey. I was going through the process with New Jersey, and I should thank Tom Fitzgerald for allowing me to go outside the organization to interview with other teams. I received a call from Tom that Steve wanted to interview me, and really it just took off from there. And I was in the meantime talking with New Jersey, talking with Steve and their managing group, and this is how we ended up here today.
And Steve, for you, there are a lot of coaches available right now that have Stanley Cup ring, multiple playoff experiences on their resume. There's a lot of fans, I think, who are thinking, okay, that's the profile of the coach we want. What would you tell those fans in choosing Travis over maybe some of those other coaches whose resume at the NHL level is a little bit more impressive?
Resume and coaching record compared to the attributes of the head coach. And so I think when you look at coaching records, and as we went through this, Ian, it was, you got to look at what the team was at the time, all the circumstances behind it, the age of the group, the talent of the group. So I know coaches get judged on their coaching records, but there's also a lot more to it. And I think as we watch the Stanley Cup playoffs right now, you could look at a few or a handful of coaches that were going to are contending for Stanley Cups now that were in the exact same position as Travis is right now after their first coaching stint. So it's a lot deeper than just looking at win-loss records.
Travis Perscarag from Post Media. I just have a quick follow-up for Steve. Travis, I talked to Brandon Sutter this morning. One of the things he said to me was that two things that you're good at are accountability and defining roles. And how important are those two things in coaching? And what did you learn from Vancouver about accountability and defining roles?
Yeah, I don't think I just learned it in Vancouver. I believe it. I wholeheartedly believe it in whatever you're doing. Knowing what your role is, having accountability within your job, and I think they go hand in hand. Players want to know where they stand. They want to know what's expected of them, and that starts really by communicating, having open, honest discussions with players, building relationships. If you want to have accountability, you've got to be able to express to your players what's expected. And that process takes a little time, but any winning team has accountability within their group, and that doesn't happen overnight. I'm a firm coach, detailed coach. I can be demanding, but I'm also very approachable, and the players will always know that I care and want the best out of them. And when you have that with building relationships and communicating with players, then you can have accountability within your group, and the players will accept it, appreciate it, and eventually want it amongst themselves as well. So yes, as far as what Sut said, I will define roles. I will set expectations high, not just for the players, but for my staff. Accountability for me is a must. It's a must in anything you want to do to have success, and that comes in numerous ways.
Just does the bar have to be the same for the better players as it is for the role players?
Yeah, in certain areas. There are things that are, within the game, I think that winning teams have that are non-negotiable. And you have to have buy-in from everyone, and your top players need to lead the way in the non-negotiables for me to win. And how I coach players is not the same from player to player. I'm going to try to get the best out of each player individually and push them in the way that I see fit. But there are going to be certain attributes in our game, certain details in our game that aren't going to be negotiable, and they're going to know what they are, and we're going to have open discussion about it. And again, I'm a coach that has an open door policy, and if you don't like something, you don't agree with something, come in and let's talk about it.
Steve, I don't want to play by play, but can you kind of walk us through the process of how you settled on Travis and how many people you talked to, that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, we started, I think, probably as far back, Bruce, as far as identifying people was probably midway through the season. Like, I think you had asked me if I'm in the coaching process. I think we all kind of are all the time, evaluating and watching. And as we kind of got down to it, we really had a criteria that we were looking for. And as we're going through the interview process, trying to find the right personality with the strengths of the person to bring into our group, we probably, at the end of it, we talked to a little bit more in depth, probably about a half a dozen people, and then continue to work down the process. But it became clear to us, the more we went through this, that Travis was definitely our guy.
Lisa Wallace, Canadian Press. Travis, I guess the question is, when you look at this opportunity, what was it that made it appealing to you? You know the pressures of coaching in a Canadian market, and this is a fan base, as Ian alluded to, who is pretty desperate at this point.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question, because I think when you're looking for a job as a coach and you're looking for your next opportunity, when you talk to coaches, there are certain things that you're looking for. And for me, it starts with the team. What type of team do you have? Can you have success with that team? And I look at this team. I've watched this team from afar for a while now. I see a very young, talented team, but also has a lot of room to grow. There's a lot of room for growth here, and I think that I check that box as far as teaching, developing, and working with young players. So for me, that was exciting, looking at where this team was at. Another box that coaches will talk about is ownership. Where's the ownership at within the organization? And I talked about Michael earlier, and man, when I talked to him, I was excited. Then you look at management. Like, where's the management at in relation to the coach, to ownership? Is there a collaboration there? Again, I was blown away throughout this process. And lastly, for me, you touched on the Canadian market. I grew up in Canada. I remember watching Hockey Night in Canada when I was a kid. I remember playing. For me, hockey is Canada, and I think it's a privilege to coach in Canada, to play in Canada, and there's something to be said for winning in Canada. And there is pressure, and I like that, and that was something that, another box that got checked.
Steve, just a question for you. The 4-year term, is that potentially knowing that this isn't gonna, the change isn't gonna happen overnight, and to give Travis a bit of maybe some security and giving him the time needed to implement his structure?
I think that's fair. I think if you look at our group and the growth and potential of our group moving forward, I think that lines up.
From Paris in Montreal, so excuse the accent. Travis, we all know how talentful this team is, how much talent there is in this roster, but last couple of seasons have been disappointing for them. What do you feel at this moment is missing from this team to become a successful team in the playoff?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't want to get too deep into it, since I haven't sat and really watched the team play a whole lot from a coach's eye. I've watched it from afar. I've watched, if you would have asked me 2 years ago where this team was at, it was exciting. You had a bunch of new young faces that come in, and fast team, hard to play against, and then, certain expectations come to a young group, and that can affect a young team as well. And all I know right now is when I look at this team, it's young, it's exciting, it's got a bright future, and I'm going to push the team in a direction of improving and making it a winner and having winning attributes. There's one thing to be a skilled group. It's another thing to be a skilled winning group. And like I said, I come from a history of teaching, developing, going way back through my coaching, and that's not just how to make a nice pass or how to run a power play. That's what it takes to win. And you watch playoff hockey right now, it's great hockey, it's hard hockey, it's defensive hockey, it's offensive hockey, it's a 200-foot game, it's a commitment to winning. And for me, that's part of the conversations I'm going to have with our team, is what it takes to win, and fast-tracking that to eventually being a winner.
What, from your point of view, are winning attributes for a team?
There's a lot that goes into that. It's playing for each other, it's playing for the crest, it starts with work, it starts with compete on a daily basis, not just in games. It's practice habits. The list is long.
Tim Baines from Post Media. 2 questions for Travis. I think there's a perception out there this team is underperformed, that maybe they haven't been pushed hard enough. How would you consider yourself as a coach? Are you a tough coach, ready to sit guys out if necessary, ready to bench guys?
I'm a demanding coach. I'm firm, I'm demanding. When you talk about a tough coach, I think that gives you a persona of a certain type of person or coach. I'm just a demanding coach that wants the best out of my players. I want to push them to be their best, to tap their potential, but also work with them and make them understand what that is. I don't look at myself like a tough coach. I look at myself as a coach that wants to make my players the best that they can individually, and that's going to make us the best we can collectively. And, you know, being a demanding coach isn't always yelling at a player or sitting out a player. It's sometimes it's giving a player, you got to give them confidence as well if they're feeling down. And there are times when good players lose their confidence. And now they need a coach that's not, you know, looking at them in a negative way. So being a demanding coach comes in a lot of different ways. And I think if you're good with people and you have good people skills to read the player, you figure out what the player needs to be pushed to their max. And I take a lot of pride in being that type of coach.
20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, you were part of that Battle of Ontario rivalry. And I guess there was an infamous incident where Darcy Tucker went into the Sens bench. I think you'd just taken a penalty, so you sort of had a front row seat. What, to your recollection, what happened?
Well, I figured this question would come, especially when I was on the plane yesterday. I got about 8 people sending me video clips of it. And wouldn't you know, the first person I walk into in the rink is Chris Neal. And then Phillips walks around the corner, and now I'm starting to have nightmares again. But you know what? I go back to those days, and you know, 2 passionate teams, a lot of passionate players on both teams. I stood on the bench today, and I remember almost being in the bench that night. But you know, those are fun times, and they were. You know, you look at those 2 teams back then and the way they competed, and seeing, you know, both buildings that time of year with playoff hockey, and just the fact that I got those videos and then I was standing on the bench today really resonated with me, what we're going to try to build and get to here with a Canadian fan base here in Ottawa. And it's a passionate city. They want a winner, and I'm the exact same way.
Travis, two more questions for you, if that's okay. What would you say is the biggest difference between the Travis Green who took the Vancouver job in 2017 and the Travis Green that's sitting here in front of us 7 years later?
Still a passionate guy. Still, you know, I love coaching. I love hockey. I think I'm just a better coach from experience. You know, can I pinpoint one area? I think it's like anything. The first day you were on the job reporting, you look back and you're a lot better today than you are. It's like anything in life. The more you have experience, the better you're going to get. I look at myself as a guy that's able to self-evaluate, have a bit of a growth mindset, and try to improve. I think that's important for all coaches. How do you get better? I study the game, but also looking at different systems, as you know, what works for what teams. So it's hard to pinpoint one thing, but I just know, you know, through experience, through some positive times and adversity. You learn a lot when you go through adversity. I'm confident I'm a much better coach today than I was 6-7 years ago.
And my other question would be just about your staff, your bench staff. Has that been settled, and sort of how will that play out?
I'm going to be very thorough, work with Steve together to put together the right staff for our group. We'll talk to the people that have been here first and foremost, but I want to make sure that we do a thorough job in that process and getting the perfect staff just around me, but also for our group.
Dan Chisholm, OttawaSenators.com. Steve, it was talked a lot this past season about the foundation that Jacques Martin had kind of laid for this group. How much did that factor into this decision for Travis to be the next head coach of the Ottawa Senators?
Well, I think it's a benefit to whomever had come in, but it won't be such a shock to our players coming in for training camp as far as the details and habits. I think that's one thing that Jacques and the staff did a great job of in the back half of the season. You know, the discipline, the details, the habits, the level of professionalism. I think you know, that's a foundation that anybody would benefit from, including myself and our players, most importantly.
Murray Pam, Full Press Hockey. Hi, Travis. Do you have a belief in analytics, and what do you draw from that?
I do. You know, you talk about experience, and from where I started in the NHL back in Vancouver to where I am today, you know, that's, for me, working with every department, collaborating with every department within your organization is part of being a good coach. And if you're going to get an edge, use it. And I think analytics can give you an edge. I don't coach off analytics, but I will use them. I'll use them in a pre-scout. I'll use them as far as studying our own game, where we're weak at. Also in the off season, you know, what are good teams doing? Why are they, you know, where are they good analytically, and how can we be better in those areas? So I'm a believer in it, but it's not. I won't say that I coach off of it.
Yeah. As a longtime NHL player, you make the decision to get into coaching. And as the old sports saying goes, when things aren't going right, you can't fire all the players. So you're the front guy. What kind of mentality do you need? And is it difficult at times when really you're standing behind the bench and maybe things aren't going the way you want?
Yeah, it's always difficult when you're coaching and you're losing. There's nothing worse than that. And it can be a frustrating job. But, you know, I love hockey. I love coaching. You know, and that just comes with the territory that there are frustrating times. But there's also great times. And, you know, you hope your players see how much you love it. And part of coaching is also, like I said earlier, it's not just being demanding. It's showing empathy when you need it. I've had a lot of good coaches over my playing career that I'd like to say that I learned a lot from as well. And looking back, some of the things I learned would surprise a lot of people in a good way and a bad way, and taking things that I would never do to a player, for example, or didn't like the way they did this. But also some coaches that really taught me lessons in caring for players that would surprise people. So it's a job that I love. It's not for everyone, like you said, but when you're passionate about the game and you love coaching, it's you know, it's the best league in the world, and there's not a lot of these jobs out there.
Who are some of the coaches that you've leaned on or else that you've taken things from, that you've really learned from?
Yeah, I started with Al Arbor, obviously a Hall of Fame coach. You know, has done a lot of winning in the league. I was a player that got shipped around a little bit, so I had a lot of different coaches as well. Pat Quinn, Paul Maurice, Mike Sullivan, Randy Carlisle. So I've played under a lot of good coaches, taken things that just from watching that you naturally see in a coach. But I'm also my own coach and develop my own way, and have a strong mindset of how to coach in the way I'm going to do it as well.
Alex Adams, the Hockey News. Maybe just talk about this team for many years has struggled defensively. How much of an emphasis is, you know, maybe cleaning up their own end?
It's no secret when you look at the numbers, the underlying numbers. You know, defensively is part of where we're going to need to get better. Now, I'm not going to go into details of exactly D-zone coverage. I'm going to study things over the summer, see what players we have as the summer goes on. But you see that a lot with young players, young skilled players, getting them to grasp the commitment level to play in their zone. For me, that's number one. If you want to defend well, you got to be committed to defending well. There's obviously technique, structure, details that are taught, but a big part of it is the mindset. And you know, I remember being a young player at 19, 20, you know, being used to scoring goals. And if you talk to me about defense, I was probably not listening. And a lot of coaches would say when I was 25, I probably wasn't listening either. So I get that part of it. And, you know, if you want to defend well, if you want to win, you've got to play a 200-foot game, and you got to care about defending. That's the first step for me.
Go back to the research.
Daniel Alfredsson finished the year on the staff. Is that an idea you're open to if he wants to remain in that role?
You know, when you talk about Daniel Alfredsson, you know, you're really talking about a legend, Hall of Fame player, a senator that, you know, when you think about the Senators, you're going to think about him. So I really look forward to speaking with Daniel. We texted back and forth yesterday to get his thoughts and ideas, where he wants to go, if he wants to be a coach full-time. I'm open to everything that he wants to do, and really look forward to sitting down with him and talking hockey, talking coaching. And I think it's important that when I was in Vancouver, it's similar to when with Hank and Daniel. I had them as players my first year, and then they retired. Now, obviously, our Daniel's been out for a while, but you know, they mean something to the team, they mean something to the organization, and again, I look forward to meeting with them.
And we'll wrap up with Lisa.
We've talked a lot about this passionate fan base. What's a couple things that you would want them to know about Travis Green?
Man, you know, I care. I come here and I know what it means to coach in Canada. I know how bad the people in Ottawa want to win, and I'm going to give everything I can to push this team. And when I say push, develop and help, but also push and be demanding to make this team into a winning team, a team that they can be proud of. And I want to win a Stanley Cup, and I know that's why we're here, and I'm going to push this team to get to that place.
We'll do one last one here in the back.
It's Emmanuel from TVA. Lauer told us you want to build a better relation with the Quebec-Gatineau area. Is it important for you to have any plan to learn French, to communicate with the French fans in the area?
You know, it's my first time coaching in a bilingual area, and I think it's exciting for me. I'm going to embrace it. I took French in school for 7 or 8 years. Again, a lot of teachers might think that I wasn't in the class, but I was. And I will try to learn as much as I can, but I think it's very important that a team is connecting with the French-speaking fan base, and I know that it's important to our organization.
And Steve, you told us you spoke with around 6 candidates. Was it important part of your criteria to have a bilingual coach for this team, or not really?
It's certainly part of it, for sure. I mean, we look at it as an important part for our organization. It is part of the criteria, for sure. I think there are some things that I got to make sure that we're making decisions on along with that, but certainly it's been part of the criteria.